Hey, welcome to Humans of Metagame, a meta radio podcast about, the humans of Metagame. We'll be interviewing the players and patrons of Metagame about who they are, how they got here, why are they here, and why do they even like Metagame? Why? And for this very first episode, I bring you Hammad the MetaDreamer. He was among the first to join Metagame, and he was the very first serious builder to have started building Metagame. And though I never actually met the man, I owe a lot to him. If it weren't for him, it's very likely that I would have given up on Metagame. So you should thank him too. Without further ado, here's Hammad the MetaDreamer of Metagame, MetaFactory, Sourcecred, and probably a bunch of other projects in the future. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Hammad.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's funny, the people who know me from before still call me Hammad, but all the newer people who know me call me MetaDreamer, and a lot of people get confused because they don't know it's the same person. But yeah.
I still address you as Hammad in chat, when I tell people about you, and yeah, that definitely happens. I just have problem with writing MetaDreamer with caps lock. Go ask MetaDreamer.
Yeah, you have to yell it every time. Some people just abbreviate it to MD.
Yeah, but that also confuses people.
Yeah,
new people.
I'm gonna stick with it until it eventually settles on something. Let the market decide.
Did you do you want to be more anon? Actually, is that do you want people to stop calling you Hammad?
No, I don't care if my friends and people I know call me by my name, but generally, I think I just wanted to have more semi-anon public facing thing. Plus, MetaDreamer is just a cool name. It's kind of like Persona. If you've seen Mr. Robot, MetaDreamer is Mr. Robot, and Hammad is Elliot.
All right, yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself. God damn, I still have these. You never try to be speak words cleanly on the podcast, and then I just don't do it.
Who cares about clean words? Dirty words is where it's at.
I was talking about that. People still trying to push for more political correctness in metagame. It's weird. I think Jelly brought a really great point. I think it was Jelly when he said we have to decide do we want to be the South Park or do we want to be the Simpsons? And I do think we want to be South Park, but we do also have to be friendly and inviting to people. It's weird finding this balance.
Yeah, it's the bigger you get, the more people there are that are gonna get upset on stuff. So it's hard to be big and also have that level of controversy. It's interesting too, the people that get away with it, they put it under a guise of comedy, it's as in Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle and all this stuff. They're saying real stuff, but they use the guise of comedy as their protective barrier against those sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I planned on if I turn my Twitter account into something more controversial, I will put a failed comedian in my bio. That's the plan. But yeah, we'll finally have a code of conduct in place. I remember when this was gonna be implemented years ago. Not years ago, but years ago in crypto time. At first I didn't like the idea, but I think it's kind of necessary.
Yeah. So about myself, I'm a software engineer and designer. I joined Metagame and kind of just started contributing to Web3 ecosystem late 2019. Metagame's kind of the thing that pushed me to get involved more actively. And I think it was just like the simple fact that there was even like a call to action to get involved, like an ask. Usually like when you're just reading about crypto stuff, you're just kind of like passively consuming and watching what others are doing. But Metagame kind of had this, it was like a quest you can go on. And, that kind of like opened my eyes to the whole like kind of crypto space and how it works and how it is really just a big MMORPG. Even like all of DeFi and everything, like everyone's just trying to like, get the most loot, optimize for like different things, going around building clans, building communities. And so because like crypto is like the closest thing to like a real life MMORPG already, and Metagame was kind of trying to like, formalize that's what was really exciting about that for me.
Right, I remember you saying like that how you were going to DevCon and you thought that like there's no way for you to get involved like and to do something useful if you don't know Solidity, and like you're a developer and a designer, so like those are real skills, and you like still thought that.
Yeah, it was only when I like went into DevCon and like saw and like talked to people, got a sense of what the community was like, that it actually clicked for me. Because before then I just thought it was a bunch of like hardcore like protocol devs and like doing this sort of thing. Even like because from like the traditional world you don't really think of it in that way, like startups and all that sort of thing. It's not something that you can just like kind of walk through the door and like start doing stuff. But crypto is like that, a lot of these communities are very open, and it's if you just like show that little bit of leadership and initiative, you can like do so much. And I think like so much of it is the culture and the community and how things actually work behind the curtains, like isn't really visible to people outside of those curtains. And, it's even like things like this, having just conversations with people and like talking about what it is, that can do a lot to kind of motivate people and show them what it's really about. And I've noticed too, like this time around, it is a lot more, like people are getting involved a lot more, especially like with NFTs and artists, and things are starting to be more accessible and like community driven. Back in like 2017, it was just like landing pages and ICOs with like huge promises and how we're going to change the world. But now it's more so like practical, actually doing things, and the whole degen culture and all this crypto stuff is kind of like built out this more accessible niche of people kind of building in and around crypto.
Right, and there's definitely more of like community side of things. Like there were like Telegram groups back then. Like there wasn't like really obvious ways to like really get involved, or like to even find ways to contribute besides shilling.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see how much like Discord has like taken off as the portal into Web3. Even if you start to like think about the metaverse and like Web3 kind of being the key missing component to like making the metaverse be a reality. Discord is a terminal into that metaverse, with all these like communities, especially like when you have like interconnected communities and like token permission chats and all these different things. It's funny how like Discord wasn't really built with that like use case in mind. It was just built for like gamers. But it's funny that something that was built for gamers is a perfect fit for Web3, because like Web3 is like a game.
Right. Do you think there will be some more crypto native project disrupting Discord and getting more like adoption from the crypto people? Or do you think Discord will also evolve to include more features?
So I think for crypto people to get off Discord, it would take like some sort of black swan event. Discord like bans all crypto things, or like there's some sort of big hack or something really bad happens. Usually people are comfortable with how things are unless like there's a strong motivation to change. So yeah, I don't see Discord going anywhere for a while, just because just so much like existing network effect, and people will not be able to like migrate. But I think long term, yeah, we're gonna, something like Matrix, the way forward with it. We will want it to be decentralized eventually, but yeah, I think people's ideas on like how quickly things need to be decentralized is sometimes pretty far from like the practical need for it to be decentralized. And that's the thing too, is like decentralization is something you need for like when shit goes bad. It's not something you need when things are good, right? When things are good, it's like you can kind of just trust people and things can work out. It's only when people get into like things going south, people losing money, some sort of like bad event happens, And then that's where like the decentralization of your community or project or anything gets put to the test.
Right. You really don't need everything to be decentralized. Yeah, back in 2017, everything like decentralize everything. It was like some things like why would you even put that on the blockchain? Like it makes no sense to do it. But it's funny also how network effect also has impact on like having people just stay around instead of moving on. Like there's probably platforms that like do things better than Discord. Like I will just install this like app called Gilded. It looks like something between Discord and Basecamp. Like okay, this is interesting. Like it has channels, it has voice, but it also has a bunch of other things. And like there will be hidden gems like that people just don't go to because everything is on Discord.
Yeah, I think Discord's like honestly pretty solid too. Like I don't have too many complaints about it. With Discord bots especially, you can kind of create a lot of your own custom features and functionality and experiences. It's also about like reputation and track record. If there's a new like startup or new platform that's trying to like compete with Discord, you know, do you actually like trust Discord to like stick around and like deliver on stuff versus like new companies that don't have a track record? So a lot of people, it's just a matter of that. If we're going to like migrate our whole community to use this thing, how long is this thing going to actually like stick around for? I remember, you know, it was like that Telegram clone that we were like funding through MetaCartel a while back.
Oh yeah, MetaFuel.
MetaFuel, yeah. You know, something like that. They need a lot of money to be able to like compete with Discord. And that's the thing about Discord is like it's free, and like the amount of stuff that you get for free is like really awesome, just because they have that, you know, boosting mechanism that honestly like a pretty fair way for them to make money on the product. Because with Slack and all these other things, you have to like start paying for it. And with these other newer platforms, especially if they're free, it's like there's always like some catch to it, you know, either in terms of like how long it can last or whatnot.
Right. Yeah, it's easy to outcompete them like as Discord when you like have such a huge user base. You can be free and like still make enough money to keep rolling because of your scale.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like usually if someone made like a Web3 native Discord, that might be more appealing to crypto people, but there's a lot of Web3 functionality that can be built into Discord just with bots. You know, a lot of people have built NFT trading bots and like Collabland and, you know, token permission chats and tip bots and all that sort of stuff. Just like that, I feel like just covers so many use cases that people, you know, what can you really do more than that? It's hard.
Yeah, I'm mainly thinking more in terms of like actual project management, because this is mainly like a communications tool and you can use it for a bunch of things, but at the end of the day it's still just like channels, text channels and voice channels. Like it really wasn't made for this purpose.
Raid Guild and MetaFactory are like both Discords I see that use Discord heavily for project management. A part of it too is like because like everyone has a Discord account, it's easy to like, you know, invite the different people from different projects into these channels and like give them access, and no one has to like sign up for anything just because everyone has it. But yeah, it's the network effects again.
But actually you see a great thing with like the bots bring a lot of this functionality, because like if we had this bot, for example, that prompts people about the task that they should be doing, that like they committed to do, and like doing roundups and whatnot, like then you really can use it for project management. And I mean, we've been using it for project management, but yeah, it can be made a lot better.
Yeah, I think in general, like with crypto or like Web3, the things that have like worked best are like kind of people piecing together different tools and things to like build something rather than like one monolithic platform that's trying to do it all. You know, like even with DeFi, you've seen it with different DeFi Legos. You can get a loan on Aave or like use Aave to like build this other yield thing, and you know, Alchemix using Yearn and kind of composing all these different things. I think like that sort of strategy works a lot better. I can kind of see it with like Aragon, you know, not really taking off in the way that they probably imagined, just because it's trying to be that like monolithic platform, when in reality people are starting to use like Snapshot and Gnosis and Sourcecred and kind of putting different pieces together specifically based on their needs. And you know, I think Gnosis too, it's interesting, like they're really starting to pivot into being more of a DAO framework. I think they plan to add rage quit support now, so that people who have a certain token can like rage quit assets from the DAO. And like building apps on Gnosis is like so much easier than building apps on Argon, because the Argon you have to go like, make all these like advanced contracts and stuff. Whereas with Gnosis, it's like the safe is just any other Ethereum account, and you can like interact with it. Kind of like Argon agent. They added agent functionality, but Gnosis makes it even easier and kind of like natively built in. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see that like Gnosis of all the DAO frameworks, which wasn't even supposed to be a DAO framework, is kind of doing it best. And with Snapshot, them working with Snapshot, I think kind of helped that, because a lot of these like DeFi DAOs were using Snapshot and Gnosis already as like their treasury. That's the thing too, is like if the top 10 token holders are gonna have all the voting power anyways, it's the same thing as having like a multi-sig with those 10 people or even the 5 people. The chances of them colluding to like screw over the community is very low, just because they're so invested in the community and building it.
Rather than someone taking a flash loan.
Yeah. In practice, that worked as a great starting point. And then, with the stuff they're building now, it's like you can eventually just remove all those multi-sig owners and then have it so that the snapshot vote is what executes DAO interactions. And then you get to the state where you're fully decentralized without having to like deal with gas fees and on-chain voting and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like I still think that putting all those like pieces together and building this, I mean, depends on what you mean by monolithic. Like Aragon definitely did badly by making it so close, but Gnosis is definitely making a great play here. It kind of does all start with a wallet. And yeah, just like having actual these apps usable through your interface and not trying to build it all yourself, but yeah, actually having people
collabing. Like I think that's the biggest meta in Web3 is like collaborating. Like Argon, all the Argon apps, they tried to make their own apps for everything, whereas Gnosis apps are just integrations to other platforms that already exist. That's a really powerful thing in like Web3 that's different from Web2, is that collaborating is more effective as a business strategy than trying to like build your own and compete. And that's kind of like, for me, even joining Metagame, that was like the main sort of value or purpose I saw in Metagame, is like reducing those information asymmetry, those silos where like people are building the same thing in multiple different places and using that to compete. Even just like Web2, right? You think of Apple versus Facebook versus Google. How many billions of dollars are spent on building the exact same shit in these 3 different companies just so they can compete with each other? In Web3, it's like it already is the case where you have huge projects and communities, Yearn and Aave and Compound and these newer ones like Alchemix, and they're all so powerful because they're collaborating with each other and creating this network of value. Like they're not even really trying to compete with each other. Like SushiSwap and Uniswap, that was one that was like really trying to compete. But that's an interesting case in and of itself, because it was like, that was about community first, kind of like Web3 crypto native mindset from SushiSwap versus like Uniswap's kind of more traditional like VC funded startup mindset. And I don't even blame Uniswap, because when Uniswap came to be, like there wasn't any of these like fleshed out or proven out, or like no one figured these things out. They needed to kind of go that traditional route because there wasn't any sort of playbook yet. But in the last, like after the bear market with the tokens, with 2017, it was like everyone just focused on that one use case of tokens, which is like selling them and ICOs. Didn't experiment beyond that. But like 2 years after that, in the last like 18 months, people really started to experiment with tokens more, start to see what they can be used for. And then that's where we got all these like really interesting projects and communities, and tokens actually like being something more meaningful rather than just hype. It's the same thing with NFTs now. NFTs right now is the same thing as ICOs back in 2017, where people are just focused on this one use case of minting art with NFTs and not thinking beyond that. But you can already start to see some projects and communities starting to think beyond just, here's a token that has a picture attached to it, into like unlocking experiences like MetaKey. It's like this project by Maddie, a DCL blogger. I don't know if you've probably seen him on Twitter, but like MetaKey is basically this NFT that's supposed to represent access to like a bunch of experiences in the metaverse and then like crypto. So it's, you know, if you have one MetaKey, then you can access all these different things from different projects. So, you know, they're collaborating with MetaFactory and MetaPurse and like so many different like NFT and crypto communities where all of them have kind of like agreed to like have some sort of exclusive experience unlocked by people who have this MetaKey. A kind of example from the traditional world is if you have some sort of like AMA membership or like, you know, you have a certain, you know, platinum credit card that you can like access all these special lounges in all the airports. But instead of just being limited to one community, it's kind of this passport to like multiple communities in the crypto space. And, you know, so that's something that's more exciting with NFTs is like these kind of experiential, actually using this thing for something, you know, it has value in the experience that it brings.
Yeah, definitely. So much more to NFTs than just art. And most people just think, okay, NFTs, that's art.
And yeah, I think too, for me, when I was like first coming into the crypto space, I just having that more outsider perspective like gave me a real advantage or edge against people who have been in the space longer, because I didn't have that bubble or like, you know, same feedback loop of talking to the same people about the same things. You know, crypto Twitter is kind of like a echo chambery in a lot of ways. So for me now, it's like I've already like used up that power, you know, now I'm so deep in it that like I can't have that outsider perspective anymore. So like new people who are coming into crypto, instead of thinking that people in crypto have it right and whatever like they think is wrong or they just don't get it yet, they should actually like kind of double down or at least explore their opinions and thoughts on all these things, because that outsider perspective is like shows you something that like people who are so deep into it don't see anymore or don't appreciate anymore.
Like when I was starting Metagame, I was really on top of things. Like it was at that point, it was still possible to be like up to date with everything happening in crypto. But then, like as I focus on this thing, the more and more crypto grew, and like I just wasn't able to stay up to date with all this DeFi NFT stuff.
I mean, like no one really is. It's a full-time job just keeping up with it, right? If you try to keep up with it, then you're not really building anything. Anyone who's actually like building is like, you know, not really plugged in with everything else going on. That's the kind of other coordination issue is the people who are like building and focused and creating value are kind of like disconnected from the kind of public facing like conversation, you know? The people that sort of sit at that place of representing the community are the ones are just kind of spending all their time, you know, keeping up on social media and Twitter and just engaging on that surface level without actually like, you know, getting dirty in the mud. It's tricky. There's, you know, Defiant and like the, you know, Robin, who's like makes those awesome like videos, tells those stories. He's doing an amazing job there at kind of bringing to light these sort of things. But there needs to be more of that kind of bridging between what's really kind of being created behind the scenes and like, you know, kind of telling those stories in a public way.
Yeah, those videos are amazing.
Hopefully we'll get him to do one for Metagame.
Yeah, he talked about possibly doing a workshop on video production, and I said, okay, that's perfect time because it's MetaFest. Let's come on, do it. But then he ended up giving up because it's just too much shit going on. Like the man does so much. Let's go back. Let's hear more about you. Like I guess you said part of the way, like exactly how you got into here, but like why were you interested in this in first place, and like how did you get to even getting too close to crypto, and like your path of choosing freelancing over Microsoft and things like that.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Like for me, there's that like Steve Jobs quote where like things may not make sense in the moment, but like you can connect the dots looking backwards but not looking forwards. Kind of the decisions you make in life. I never felt like it was kind of like conscious decisions that I was like following what's like the logical thing to do, but kind of like more so what I wanted to do or like was like right for me, or basically I guess the way to think about it is the things that I would regret not doing, you know. things that I would rather do and fail rather than like not do and like miss a chance of actually that thing working out, you know, like missing an opportunity like that. And so for me, like crypto was kind of like that. My entire journey of everything I did in my life to like get there, it still feels to me like very crafted. Like there was some sort of guiding force to like put me down that path where I didn't know why I was making those decisions, but they were being made. For me too, like I am like a pure like determinist, that I do believe that like everyone's sort of fates are kind of, you know, what's going to happen next is like determined by the like previous state of the universe. And, you know, we're all sort of kind of on our trajectory. If you watch the show Devs, it kind of like goes into that a bit more. In that sense, like I've always just tried to like follow where, you know, where my heart says that, you know, this is what you should be doing, even if it doesn't make sense logically. It's funny, like when I was in like grade 3 or grade 4, that's when I told my parents I wanted to be a computer engineer. In a way, I was almost like decided at that point that that's what I wanted to do. And after that, like I kind of went in like different paths. When I went into university, I actually applied for petroleum engineering. Like that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't get in because my marks weren't good enough. So then I had to settle for computer engineering, but that turned out to be a very good thing because the oil industry like completely crashed in where I am in Canada. It was huge before, and like petroleum engineering was like the best paying one by far. And, you know, at that time I was just kind of like focused on the money aspect of it. Oh, this pays the best, so that's what I should do. But, you know, I ended up in computer engineering, and that ended up, you know, just being like a way better thing, especially with remote work and the whole like COVID and just like the state of the world and how powerful having that kind of skill can be. And in terms of crypto, I got involved in crypto kind of, so I used to play a lot of Runescape, and I would like spend a lot of time on these online forums, and, you know, people were botting and creating all these like bots, and, you know, it's kind of like learning to like script some stuff there. And like people on these forums would be like talking about Bitcoin and using that to like buy and sell their like different botting services. And then, you know, you could mine Bitcoin back then. And that's what I started doing. Like, I thought it was cool. Like, oh, you know, I'll mine some Bitcoin and, you know, use it to like pay for these services and stuff. So I had a bunch of Bitcoin back then. And then, you know, it kind of like faded away. I was in high school at that time. And like, I sold most of my Bitcoin because I think it was like 15 grand or something. I sold a few like 100 Bitcoin for that amount. So I was like, for me in high school, that was like a huge amount of money. My parents never let me get a job because they want me to focus on my studies in school. So I basically started buying computer parts and building computers and selling computers. And, you know, like playing RuneScape kind of like gave me that sort of like mentality or mindset where in RuneScape, you're always kind of looking to, okay, I can gather these resources, make this thing, and then sell it for more, and like trying to optimize for, you know, where can I make the like most profit from like doing this thing, without doing it before other people find out. Because like if too many people start doing it, then it gets saturated and it's not meta anymore. It's like understanding the meta of the game and like getting good at making money in RuneScape that way kind of like taught me about economics and supply and demand and all this sort of stuff. So like that led me to building computers and doing all that sort of stuff. You know, I would go and like price match all my parts and get like crazy discount, you know, do all these sort of things to make money. And I'm almost, you know, really thankful to my parents that they didn't let me get a job, because it forced me to be more creative in terms of how I made money. Yeah, after going into uni, I was like, that's when Bitcoin started going up to like a few $100s each, and, you know, then thousands of dollars each. And I was like really salty about it the whole time. And I kind of just like ignored it, didn't really care until like mid 2016 or late 2016 when I heard from like my finance friends about Ethereum. And I thought it was cool, and I just started, you know, following and reading up about it. And then like late 2016, early 2017, when Ether was like around like few hundred, that's when I started buying Ether and like kind of reading all the posts on like r/ETH trader and Ethereum subreddit, and started genuinely like read more about this stuff. And it was super fascinating to me, but it wasn't really something I thought I would be actually like working in or like, you know, using as like my career path. I always just saw it, oh, I can maybe make some money off of, you know, buying and trading this coin. And I was actually planning to go, after I finished my degree, into AI and go and get a master's in AI, because my university was like one of the top schools for AI. The professors here kind of like wrote a lot of the early books and like main theory on modern AI stuff. And, back then too, AI was the hot topic. But then I had some other friends who were like doing AI stuff, and like I graduated in 2018. That was like, it was like after the bear market, but that's when I think the whole Ethereum community really shined. There was like a lot of gold being built in that like post bear market phase. I think even DAI came out, I think, at the end of the bear market. So DAI wasn't even a thing for most of the bull market. Starting to see like all amazing stuff happening in that space, and the fact that even after this whole big sell-off, that there's all these like crazy smart people still working on this thing, like it made me think, okay, there must be something more to this than just like another like cryptocurrency. And that's where reading about the DAO and the DAO hack, like one of the first things too was like Amin's posts on Moloch DAO, and like how Moloch DAO could be used as like a coordination mechanism, for people, just simple thing of like rage quitability. And that's where like my mind started racing as, holy crap, like this can be a crazy tool for like how society and humanity evolves. This is a pivotal like shift, as if not more important than like the internet was. And so at that point I graduated school and I had a job offer for Microsoft, and I could move to Seattle and like go do that whole thing. But for me, I've still never had like a traditional job. So, and I had a really good like contract just doing freelance work for app development. And I was like, do I really want to go down that like whole route? And I decided that I really liked the freedom of setting my own time and my own hours. For me, I'm not like a morning person at all. So like even just the thought of being on like some sort of prefixed like schedule was like not appealing to me. And I still wasn't exactly sure like where I wanted to go. So I was, okay, I'm just going to like continue doing this freelance gig until I, make enough money to pay off my loans, and then, see where I can go from there. Just doing that freelance gig, it was like 2018, 2019. 2019 is like when I started, hearing about the MetaCartel community. Late 2019 was around the time where like I was almost, done paying off my loans. I was still making good money there, but I was kind of at that point ready to like, okay, what's my next step going to be? And I really wanted it to be, in the Ethereum community, kind of like seeing like what I can do there. But I then started like learning Solidity and like, reading all this stuff. Instead of just like jumping in, I was like, okay, I need to like prepare for like a year to like learn enough so I can, even do this. But in the meantime, I'm going to go to DevCon. And then, I went to DevCon, kind of got a real sense of how the community was. And then we went from there. I think one of the earlier big influences that kind of wrote me in was the ETHUB podcast, like Anthony Sassano and the other guy, ETHUB. That was like a really great podcast. I think they did an amazing job at kind of like talking really about the awesome innovation happening and like highlighting some of these like really cool, like not really publicly talked about stuff. Because, even right now, like if you think about what's the most like what has like the most like mind share of like the general public, it's like Doge. That's it. They don't really grasp yet like all the like crazy stuff happening in Ethereum. And even though Ether price is like going crazy high, I don't think it's because people actually realize how impactful or pivotal this is. It's more so just, market trends. And like there are people who do, and like I think institutional money is like starting to see this too, and that's like kind of what's kickstarted it. And it's like kind of fueling it. The EIP 1559, people are like, oh, this is going to be deflationary now, so I'm going to put all my money into it. Like they're still coming from that mindset, right? There's not really the mindset of like, this is going to like revolutionize how we coordinate as a species. It's more so like, oh, this is going to be deflationary currency. So I think that is priced in now, but that concept is still not like kind of present in most people's minds. And for me, it's like spending the last like year or over, I don't even know how long I've been here, but however long, since like a year and a half, I'd say, I guess, it's been like one of the most rewarding and like impactful experiences for me personally. And like just there's no other place or industry or kind of thing I would be wanting to do other than this. Even just being born in this like internet age was like a crazy thing. More has changed in the last like 3 years, 5 years than like would change in like 50 years in the 1800s or something, you know. The time scales of like how fast we're advancing and stuff is just, it's so crazy. And, you know, being in that, I was born in 1995, and like 95 was actually when like JavaScript was invented. A lot of the early internet technologies were like created in 1995. I was like born right at that like thing where when I was young, I still had that like pre-internet experience, and like I kind of knew what the world was like before the internet, whereas people born now, like they don't really appreciate that or know that. So like kind of seeing that transition and like being born at that time and kind of finishing school at that same time, that, you know, we were right before the next really growth cycle in Ethereum and all these things. It was, you know, for me it was like, this is all like connected, you know, and that for me is felt this whole being in this space is like my purpose, and it's been like super fulfilling in that way.
And it's kind of like effortless. Like you didn't have to apply to any job. You just started flowing between these communities and making money. You didn't even have to ask for a grant or anything. You just come in, start contributing and start earning. It's like, it just happens.
And it's funny because that's how I kind of lived my life even before this, you know, like in RuneScape, like you don't get a job in RuneScape. You just go do stuff and like see what you can like, you know, value you can create. And it's also about having fun, you know, like you're not just doing stuff because you're being told to do it. You're doing stuff because you want to do it. And it feels rewarding and, you know, stimulating. And then same thing with like, you know, building computers, and that, you know, more entrepreneurial side of things was like always really fun to me, because it was, I felt, you know, I'm not like spending my life to like build someone else's equity or like kind of help someone else succeed more than I can, you know. In crypto and this whole space, it really feels, even if you're working for projects and communities and things, like you feel like, and you do have a level of like ownership and self-sovereignty that you don't in the traditional world, where it feels more like a machine that's kind of like pre-configured or pre-programmed to kind of like guide people down this like certain rail of, you know, you go to university, you get a job, you pay off your loans, you get a mortgage, and you spend 30 years paying off your mortgage, and, you know, you go get a house in the suburbs and you get a car so you can like, you know, spend 20 minutes driving to work every day back and forth so that the auto industry and the oil industry can survive. And that's all people know, you know. It's the allegory of the cave by Plato. He made this like example of like people living in a cave who are like born in a cave their whole lives, and there's like a fire lit behind them, and the only thing they've seen in their whole lives is just their shadows being cast on this like cave wall. And then one of them is let free, and he goes outside and he sees the trees and the sun and the grass and the birds and all this stuff, and then he's, holy crap, and he goes back and like tells those other people, and they're like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Like, because those people, like the only concept they have in their mind is these shadows in the wall. And so much of society, especially, you know, pre-COVID, pre-internet, was just like, this is what life is, this is what everyone else is doing, so I'm just going to do it, you know. The mind, the human brain is kind of like trained for conformity or to like, you know, survive. And with survival, it's like, you know, just kind of doing what's working for everyone else is the easiest way kind of to continue to survive, you know, whereas there's not really any incentive for you to like try to like come up with something unique or, you know, different. The internet really opened that kind of worms and allowed people to share ideas and share, you know, concepts and, you know, find their niche communities of like-minded people and communicate and do all this stuff. And then, you know, Web3 is just the next evolution of that, where not only you can share information, but you can share value and build value and create, you know, there's that great article about like squad wealth, your like close friends, your like group, the people that you like trust and know and love and care about. Now you have ways to like do everything together and kind of grow together and like, you know, support each other in this like positive some way. And it's like with the whole pandemic and COVID, like that kind of ripped all the curtains off, you know, kind of like was a big reset for people.
Yeah, really a big breakdown, and people just realized the absurdity of everything, and that's how then dogs started pumping.
Then it was only then that people started to question like, wait, why am I driving to work every day, you know, like why am I like doing all these things that I wouldn't otherwise be doing, and that like that kind of, you know, I think there is like a big silver lining in that, and there is like a huge shift, I think, in society's like perception of how the world works and the institutions and all that sort of stuff. So, and just like in general, like how the whole like story of Satoshi and how he created Bitcoin and, you know, just how these things all like played out. It's like it feels like none of it was like a coincidence, you know? Like it's all a simulation. And it's like, the crazy thing is like, I don't even know where we're going to be like 5 years from now, you know, with how much has happened and how things are accelerating, if things are going to like keep accelerating. I think it's just like a matter of when and not if, in terms of like how society is going to evolve past what we've had now. We will be overall like better for it, but at the same time, it is going to bring, like, just with the internet was like, I still think internet was a net benefit to society, but it's also been like has had a huge negative impact on society and people's mental health and social media and like how that all transpired. And I think with crypto too, it's going to be the same thing, where it is going to be a net benefit, but there's going to be like ways in which we make the problems worse instead of better. But I think, you know, overall, I do really believe in that like concept of almost all of our problems in the world come down to like our inability to coordinate effectively, and just having better coordination tools in general, I think gets us closer to that state. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't even think there is any sort of end like optimum state that we want to be in. It's not really about some sort of destination that we're trying to get to, but more so like the journey of how can we, you know, continue to improve and get better. It's almost a dystopia if everything is perfect, you know, because like good things are only defined by bad things. You can only be like really grateful and happy for, you know, things that you have, because you see that not everyone has these things. If everything's the same, then everything loses its meaning, and, you know, life loses all its color, and everyone would be like depressed as hell, because there's nothing to like grow, nothing to like be excited about, nothing to like want to change. All these things are like bad in the world.
Nothing to strive for.
Yeah, exactly. All the things wrong in the world are all like opportunities for you to like do something about, and, you know, feel the fulfillment for helping improve.
I've actually read a great thread a few days ago about Visa, about how people actually love being in war. So, I mean, a part of it was about it, like how a bunch of people tend to be happier during the time of war, because it brings people more together and gives them something, like gives meaning to life. And like how soldiers get depressed when they get back, and not gonna get into that. Interesting point as well before, like these you can't predict everything that these technologies will give us. Like there's a lot of great potential, but also like a lot of bad things to happen potentially, like the zero knowledge DAOs. Like, okay, that's good in theory, but then you give it to the drug cartels. And like even the rise of like communities, okay, you can say like, okay, it's communities, like what can be bad about like having more communities? But then like you also get tribalism. So there's always two sides of the coin.
Yeah, even with like, you know, DeFi, it's like we have all these better tools for finance, but, you know, in a way it's almost hyper capitalization or hyper capitalism, you know, in terms of like the problems capitalism caused. Like DeFi in a way like solves a lot of them, but also like, you know, exacerbates a lot of them in terms of like rich getting richer and all that stuff. But, you know, the nice part is at least now there's equal access to opportunity for everyone. And I think the people that are going to benefit most from this technology are the people that have been like traditionally like underserved by like the existing, you know, institutions and infrastructure. So like, you know, developing countries, like a lot of countries in Africa, where they're only now starting to get access to like financial infrastructure. For them, that's like a way bigger jump or like change in difference, you know, from like having, it's like a 0 to 1 thing. If you look at just even access to the internet, right? Before it was like 50 years ago, like if you wanted an education, like, you know, born in a country that, you know, didn't have access to like that sort of thing, you're kind of just screwed. But now like anyone, you know, with an internet connection anywhere in the world can like watch the same like Stanford lectures as like someone who has, you know, the privilege of going to Stanford. And, you know, if you see how these tools are being used in like North America or first world countries, it's like, you know, people having literally like access to the entire world's information in the palm of their hands, like instantly anywhere. And the thing that's being used most is just like, you know, people making each other depressed on Instagram by like, you know, posting pictures about their fake lives. to like feel better and validate themselves. Like that's where all, and like TikTok and all this stuff, like that's where all the like time and energy is being spent, whereas for these more like developing countries, they actually appreciate it way more, and are, they don't take it as for granted because they didn't have it before. So they have they're actually going to make the most benefit out of that thing. And yeah, I think same thing's going to happen with, crypto and all these sort of things. Whereas it's like, even with the internet, cell phones, smartphones, it started in like these first world countries. And even right now, that's where it's happening with crypto. It's like, crypto's not really making a huge impact in, these third world countries as it could be. And it is still kind of centered around first world, like, finance stuff, like rich people getting richer. But like the technologies are eventually going to go down and start to like be accessible to those people. And it already is in a lot of ways, and make that sort of impact there.
But yeah, even with the like this decentralized access, I don't know if you've seen the post that I wrote yesterday, but I kind of went on this rant about these two paths of crypto, like one about value creation and one about the value extraction. And yeah, one of the things that I touched upon is like how this decentralized access to like financial tools is also, there's something about like rebuilding the Wall Street, and I was like, I see like this is the point of crypto, and it's in some ways still like I'm not sure that's a good thing, but like I want to create we do want like a decentralized financial system, but we want to build something that's better than what we had on like with Wall Street. Yeah, something more regenerative rather than degenerative. But like what we ended up getting is degens, and like you get you give everyone access to these financial tools, and what you get is a giant casino in the Wild West. Like people just chasing the highest possible APIs without caring anything about the projects and what they stand for, like, or who owns them, and just caring about highest APIs and chasing those highs.
Yeah, I liked Nomsky's post on like the Sourcecred like addiction. That story is like I think that paints like a pretty good idea of like how things could go bad in these like decentralized communities of like the future of work.
Yeah, it ties to what I was going to say. Like you previously brought this example of people like on Instagram chasing likes, and then in DeFi people are chasing high APIs, so they're again chasing dopamine hits, except like with I guess more financial upside. But then there's also like this Sourcecred junkie, which is like the worst of both worlds. Yeah, we've been going for about an hour, even more maybe.
Yeah, we can probably wrap this up. It was great talking to you.
All right, dude. Yeah, good talking to you, and see you around.